Welcome, focus learners, to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on a seriously high-stakes mission. I want you to think of your upcoming exam like a space launch. There is absolutely zero margin for error. Every single calculation, every piece of data, and every process must be executed perfectly for a successful liftoff. Our target for today? We are decoding the exact step-by-step exam strategies for mastering Section 1.5 of the Cambridge syllabus, batch processing. Specifically, we're looking at master and transaction files and how to sequentially update that master file without losing your mind or your marks. And listen, whether you're building your foundation with syllabus codes 0417, 0478, or 2210, or you're stepping up to the big leagues with AS and A-level 9618 or our main focus 9626, the core strategy remains exactly the same. The examiners are looking for the exact same analytical depth. So let's dive right into this and completely decode the examiner's playbook together. We're going to make sure your preparation is totally bulletproof. So right off the bat, we have to ask, why do students consistently lose easy marks on batch processing? I mean, this specific topic acts as a notorious trap in past papers year after year. Let me introduce you to two typical students we constantly read about in the principal exam year reports. First, we've got Alex. Now, Alex studies hard, but he completely overloads his answers with raw, generic computer science facts. He'll write paragraphs about how master files are permanent and transaction files are temporary, but he provides zero context, no analysis whatsoever, just a data dump. Then, on the other side, we have Sam. Sam rushes through the paper, watching the clock, and completely misses the command word requirements. The question will literally ask him to evaluate a system, and he just describes it. Both Alex and Sam are leaving massive amounts of marks on the table. You can just picture their papers covered in red pen marks. In this explainer, I'm going to reveal exactly what principal examiners are actually looking for so you can transform those brutal red pen marks into beautiful green check marks. Here is our logical roadmap for today's mission. We'll start by analyzing the trap. Then we'll build your procedural framework, learn how to connect theory to context, master comparative analysis, and finally, I'm going to give you a massive memory hack to lock it all in. Let's get right into Section 1, the trap. A fundamental misunderstanding of the Cambridge assessment framework is exactly what catches most students totally off guard. Academic benchmarks for batch processing don't just want facts. They require logical, structured reasoning. The grading system heavily prioritizes analytical depth over superficial breadth. You can't just memorize the dictionary definition of a sequentially updating master file and expect an A star. You have to understand the causal relationships underneath the hood. For example, why must the transaction file be sorted in the same sequential order, usually by primary key, as the master file before an update can even occur? Think about it. If you just state that it gets sorted, well, congratulations, you have breadth. 1 mark. But if you explain that sorting prevents the system from having to rewind the magnetic tape or search the entire database from scratch for every single record, thereby saving massive amounts of processing CPU time and preventing infinite loops, boom, you have analytical depth. Full marks. Here are the top 3 principal examiner warnings straight from the past paper reports. Number 1, forgetting proper formatting. Number 2, ignoring presentation checks. And number 3, the biggest trap of all, providing generic, non-specific answers. Losing marks here is literally like having a basic calculation error before a rocket launch. It dooms your mission before the engines even ignite. Examiners absolutely despise reading generic textbook definitions when they've just provided you with a rich, detailed scenario about a hospital payroll system or an overnight banking update. When they warn about generic answers, they mean you must apply the specific variables of their scenario to your explanation. Moving right along to Section 2, the procedural framework. Grab a pen because this is your bulletproof strategy for decoding command words. Here are the 5 critical steps to ensure zero margin for error. First, deconstruct the question. You have to look at the command word. Are they asking you to describe the batch update process, or are they asking you to evaluate the choice of batch processing over a real-time system? Those command words change your entire trajectory. Second, extract relevant data from the scenario text. Hunt for clues. Third, select your analytical framework. This is where the magic PEEL framework comes in. Point, evidence, explanation, link. Top students structure every single answer around PEEL. Fourth, execute clear notation. Fifth, present correct terminology. Please, don't just say, the computer updates the file. That's too basic. You need to say, the transaction file record is read, the primary key is matched against the master file, and the sequential update is processed. Using active, precise verbs is what empowers your approach to these complex paper problems. Before we continue, subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Click that subscribe button and hit the bell icon right now. So the absolutely crucial point here is captured perfectly in this quote straight from the examiner guidelines. Method mark strategy. Marks are awarded for process and practical application. You have to realize that examiners reward the journey, not just the destination. Interpreting texts and tables systematically is critical for your score. If a question asks you to trace a batch update through a system flowchart, showing your intermediate steps is your safety net. For instance, clearly noting exactly when an error report is generated because the transaction key doesn't exist on the master file, that scores you method marks, even if your final output at the bottom of the page has a slight error. Process is everything. Show your work, explain your logic step by step, and watch the marks accumulate. Now for Section 3, Connecting Theory to Context. Let's see how the top-performing students actually adapt their knowledge on paper. Okay, let's do a quick interactive workshop right here. Look at the screen. We're going to contrast a generic, weak definition with a context-specific application using that Peel framework we just talked about. A generic answer looks like this. A transaction file contains recent changes to be applied to the master file. That scores maybe 1 mark out of 4. It's what Alex would write. It's technically true, but it's totally disconnected from the scenario. Now let's build the context-specific application. Imagine we're looking at a factory payroll scenario. Here we go. Point. The daily timesheet data forms the transaction file. Evidence. As stated in the scenario, factory employees clock in and out daily. Explanation. This temporary data must be sorted by employee ID to match the sequential layout of the payroll master file. Link. This ensures the weekly batch update processes efficiently without tape rewinds, successfully updating the permanent salary records. Do you see the massive difference there? That is how red pen marks transform into green check marks. You literally rewrite your grade by doing this. I want you to mentally spot the flaw in your own previous mock exam answers. Were you writing like Alex? Always link every single point back to the provided scenario. That is your success blueprint. Stop scrolling. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. We've helped thousands of students improve by 2-3 grade boundaries. Join them right now by subscribing to at acetheexams_IGCSE and turn on all notifications so you never miss our weekly exam strategy sessions. All right, back to the mission. To reach the highest cognitive domains in your exam, you must critically question the assumptions presented in the data. Let's do a 60-second data scan challenge right now in your mind. Imagine a scenario on the paper where a business assumes batch processing is the best way to handle online concert ticket sales. They give you a chart showing ticket data. I want you to look at that and question it. Is batch processing actually appropriate there? No way, because double booking would absolutely occur if the master file isn't updated sequentially in real time. If 2 people buy seat 4A and the system only processes it at midnight via batch update, you have a disaster on your hands. Questioning the scenario's baseline promise is exactly how you unlock those top-tier analytical marks. Let's quickly punch in the next step. Consider perspectives. This is our Find the Flaw challenge. You need to actively evaluate alternatives and consider completely different operational perspectives within the batch processing system. A flawed paragraph might say, batch processing is bad because it takes too long. The flaw there is that it only looks at one viewpoint. Instead, how does the database administrator view the batch update window overnight? To them, it's great because it doesn't interrupt daytime server loads. Now compare that to the end user who just deposited a check and wants their bank balance updated instantly. When you evaluate system performance, bringing in these multiple, sometimes conflicting perspectives shows the examiner a highly mature, holistic grasp of information technology concepts. And finalizing this rapid sequence, justify with evidence. Every single recommendation you make must be solidly justified with extracted evidence. If we're doing a 30-second speed writing drill to practice your paragraphs, your ultimate goal is to literally never make a claim without the word because attached to it, immediately followed by a hard fact from the text. For example, batch processing is suitable for this specific utility company because they process 5 million water bills at the end of the month, which does not require immediate real-time master file updates. You make the claim, you hit them with the because, and you drop the evidence. Flawless execution. Section 4, Mastering Comparative Analysis. This is where we hit the highest order assessment objectives. Evaluative thinking is what completely separates the top-tier A-star candidates from the rest of the pack. The Cambridge Assessment Framework explicitly comprises descriptive, analytical, and evaluative levels. We are aiming strictly for evaluative.
So here are your comparative framework requirements. First, you have to identify similarities and differences. You know what's crazy? Students almost always forget the similarities. They jump straight to what makes things different. Don't do that. Second, actively use comparative connectives. Words like whereas, conversely, in contrast to, similarly. You cannot just list the features of a master file in one paragraph and the features of a transaction file in another paragraph and just kind of leave it to the examiner to figure out the comparison. You have to do the heavy lifting. Connect the ideas for them. Third, support those comparisons with evidence from the text. And fourth, you must draw conclusions on relative importance. Which factor actually matters more to the business in the scenario? Is it data integrity during the sequential update, or is it the raw speed of the processing? Make a call and defend it.
All right, we've made it to section 5, the memory hack. Look, I know that in the pressure of the exam hall, when that clock is ticking down and your adrenaline is spiking, relying on sheer willpower to remember complex theoretical architecture just won't cut it. You need a mental trigger. You need to create your own memorable acronym using the first letters of key batch processing terms. Let's build the ultimate one together right now. The word is SEQUSCN, sequence. Let's break it down. S stands for sort. Sort the transaction file by the primary key. E stands for extract. Extract the old master file record. Q is for query. Query the primary keys to make sure they match. U is for update. Update the record with the new transaction data. E is for error check. Error check for any unmatched keys and flag them. N stands for new, the new master file generation. C is for contextualize. Contextualize the application using Peel. And the final E is for evaluate. Evaluate the whole process. By locking in a mnemonic hack exactly like sequence, you have an instant, foolproof blueprint. You construct the precise definitions and causal relationships in your head before you even pick up your pen to write. It is a total game changer. So, here is my final provocative question for you as we prep for launch. Are you ready to execute your exam strategy with zero margin for error? You now possess the exact playbook the principal examiners use. You know the traps, you have the Peel framework, and you understand exactly how to sequentially update your own study methods for maximum mark potential. Students who implement these computer science strategies see an average improvement of 2 grade boundaries. But that only happens if they practice consistently with our weekly explainer videos. You have to put the reps in. Here's your final reminder. Subscribe to our YouTube channel AC Exams at @ACExams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Subscribe right now to @ACExams_IGCSE and click that bell. Don't let another exam pass you by. Challenge yourself today. Apply these frameworks to a real past paper and prove your mastery. Drop a comment below with your target grade for computer science and the absolutely biggest challenge you're currently facing. Our team responds to every single comment. Like and share this video with a study partner. Ace the exams. Your Cambridge success starts here. Let's get to work.